Hey, good morning, folks. Zach Smith, call me the plant dude. I've been a horticulturist and arborist for over 20 years. Cal Poly San Luis Obispo graduate and extremely interested in the holistic approach to growing things. Plants, trees, vegetables. My forte, woody plants, shrubs, trees. Well, these are not separate and they are inseparable, I should say, from the grasses, the forbs, the herbs, the small plants. If they occur together in nature, they occur together because for a reason. And so today I wanted to talk about fertilizer. I want to talk about fertilizer on my way to work. This is a really bad video. I might have to redo this video, but I'm not going for production value. I'm going for informational value. I went around and around for years with fertilizer and soil testing and fertilizer and soil testing, and it took the question, why doesn't Mother Nature have these problems? Why don't the trees and the shrubs in the forest have powdery mildew, spider mites, and aphids? I mean, sure, some get bugs, some get fungal infection, but they don't get it like they do in the residential landscape, the vegetable garden. And so, because I'm curious, and we have things like Google, I just Googled the hell out of that stuff over time, and I came across some really sensible, I would say, theologians in horticulture and agriculture, like John Kempf and Dr. Elaine Ingham and Dr. Christine Jones and Alan Savory. And I found documentaries like Kiss the Ground and The Biggest Little Farm. And I read books like From Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown. And I saw Ray Archuleta, the agronomist, on YouTube doing demonstrations, and I started to look at this all, and I was thinking, there's something going on in nature that's not going on in the cultivated world, the farm fields or the backyard garden or the residential landscaping. What's missing? It's not super easy to parse it all out, but with a little bit of, maybe 1,000 hours of research, I started to make my own sense of it all. And I want to pass this on. I want people to have a peaceful relationship with the natural, thriving plants, whether it's food or beautiful aesthetics. And Gabe Brown says it best. You gotta just emulate nature. Now, how do you emulate nature when you've got 1,000 acres to grow? How do you emulate nature in a beautiful backyard, formal garden, a beautiful landscape designed with all the features? Well, we can break this down to some key things that you should have, the must-haves. And one of those must-haves is some sort of insulation on the soil surface. Generally, that's mulch. I'm not even super opposed to gravel. I'll tell you why, because there are people who say gravel is not an acceptable mulch. Well, we all know rocks are great conductors of heat. And what we're trying to do with mulch or a cover crop or crop residue is, in a big part, shade the soil from the sun. We cannot have hot soil. And I can go on forever about all the things that are tied to this, but let's just put it this way. Soil should be cool, and cool soil will be a good habitat for the necessary microorganisms that keep this whole planet running. If you read Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, you'll have a fun time learning about fungi and how the fungi, or fungi, or as my son says, funguses, which is like hilarious, run the show. The fungal bacterial counterparts in this world are really running the show. If you look at all the things they do. So, mulch protects the soil from the sun's heat. The difference can be 20, 30 degrees. It could be 40 degrees. So you could have cool soil with mulch. You could have hot soil with no mulch. So hot soil is dead soil. Now I start to call dead soil dirt. I was taught in my horticulture program, we don't say dirt, we say soil. And I'm like, yes, that's why I want to say it's a bad word, dirt. You end up with dirt. And that's why Gabe Brown's book, From Dirt to Soil, that title hit. When I saw that title, I was like, aha, this already makes sense, and I don't even know what the book's about. So we emulate nature because nature has mulch everywhere you look, unless you live out in the desert, and I'll challenge you to see the mulch there too. But the most obvious mulch is the leaves and twigs underneath the trees and shrubs in nature, and the old dead plant material that lays down and slowly decomposes and becomes compost. So if you have mulch, you're a step in the right direction. If you don't have mulch, you're 100 steps in the wrong direction. Now, you have plenty of examples, I know, where you see plants doing just fine without mulch. You go to the grocery store, any shopping center that has shrubs in the parking lot, trees in the parking lot, and there's no mulch, it's just bare dirt. And these are anomalies. When we want to create plant disease, we create situations like this. I'll also tell you that the plants that you see in the parking lots all over town, they aren't the prettiest plants in the world. They aren't very different. They're not very varied. They are your mainstay, staple, tough as nails shrub. You recognize it because it's been around forever. These are plants that will thrive on neglect. People often want different plants. They want unique plants. They want plants that their neighbors don't all have. They want plants in different textures and colors and shapes and sizes that produce fruit or vegetables or bring in the butterflies and bees, hummingbirds, right? You want all that. That's not what you're seeing typically at your grocery store parking lot. So mulch is an essential, and I want to just say, gotta get your hands dirty. Put your hand on the soil surface underneath whatever you have for mulch on a hot sunny day, and just decide for yourself, is it cooler down there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in July? Is it cooler under the mulch than on top? And if you have gravel, I've done this, there's a lot of talk, oh, gravel's not good for mulch, it's heavy. Well, I'm not sure the weight of it matters so much. We can pick that apart, but it conducts heat. Yes, a rock is a tremendously good conductor of heat. So the idea would be the sun shines on the rocks, the gravel on top, and it transfers through the gravel, down, and it radiates into the soil surface. So I wanted to know the answer to this. So I go to this landscape where I'm working, and they have gravel as mulch and it's just full sun underneath this big tree. The tree is not shading the gravel. And I touch the gravel surface, and yeah, it's warm. It's hot. It's July. And I scratch that, gravel away, and I put my hand on the soil surface, and it's cool. I don't need to go a lot farther with this because I am satisfied that mulch was cooling the soil. Now, was the soil compacted? This is part 2. This is the I can't tell you which is a bigger component part. They're both huge, and yet the easier part for everybody is to add mulch. Mulch versus no mulch is easy. You look at the ground, you don't see mulch, it's because you don't have it. Now you look at the ground and you cannot determine its compaction, its friability, its aeration, its pore space, its structure. You can't determine that stuff. So when we look at nature, we also cannot see what's going on, but nature has what we would call undisturbed soils. Generally, 99% of the time, unless you're around a landslide or a volcano, you're gonna be dealing with old soil that's not been moved in, hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, right? Not been tilled or turned over or hit with a tractor or a shovel. That's typical, right? We're talking about being in nature, in a forest or a meadow or someplace like this. Even an old park that's been left alone in between the trees, nobody's going to have been tilling the soil. Now, that means the soil is going to return to its natural structure. It's going to have particle sizes. It's going to have pore space. You're going to have colloids, aggregation. And all this is big words for saying the soil will actually open up. And that opening up is done by a number of organisms. Roots, microarthropods, worms, small microscopic worms, fungi, bacteria, insects, gophers, moles, crickets, things that burrow, things that move down through the soil, things that live in the soil. And a big part is roots exuding byproducts of photosynthesis out of their roots and into the soil. And that's a whole other topic. But let's just suffice to say that if you leave plants alone in a natural setting, the soil food web, as Dr. Elaine Ingham calls it, the matrix of organisms that inhabit the soil will help that soil move and shift in a very micro way into a structure that allows for easy exchange of atmospheric gas into the soil and metabolite byproduct gas out of the soil, from respiration. So all those organisms respire, they breathe, and they breathe out carbon dioxide just like you and me, and that has to get out of the soil. If it, you can't have it building up, and you need air and water to move down and out. So that's what you have in nature. That's because we don't walk all over it, drive all over it, rototill it, and irrigate it every other day or whatever. I love that. How often should I water? Well, the rule of thumb is there's no rule of thumb, but there is, right? We get by. Despite our best efforts to destroy and kill our plants, they thrive in places. And we go, well, see, my rule of thumb works. Well, how often does it rain where you live? That's about the amount of irrigation you need. Now, of course, that doesn't work in the landscape. And that comes back to another one. Why? Why does Mother Nature thrive on the regular old erratic rainfall? And I'm in California. We get rain only in the winter. I mean, not all of California is the same, but you have 5 Mediterranean climates around the earth, and all of those are defined as a hot, dry summer and a cool, wet winter. Okay, it's simple enough. We have rain in a Mediterranean climate only in the winter, yet we have green plants all summer long, even green grasses sometimes. And that's in nature. We're not talking the landscape. And people say, well, we should landscape with native plants. Fine, do what you want. It's your garden. If you're going to landscape with native plants and you're going to irrigate them, I'm calling into question: is it really a native garden? The plants are native, but are they requiring water all summer long after they've established? I don't know why is that a thing. So we can go round and round with that stuff, because this is where horticultural science becomes a philosophy. I think that we should just continue to look at what Gabe Brown said in his in his book, From Dirt to Soil, or the documentary Kiss the Ground. When we emulate nature, we see we don't turn the soil over, we don't rototill, we don't till, and we don't compact. We don't trample all over it. Mulch will help with this to some extent. Mulch will also help with micro-compaction because raindrops and irrigation sprinkler droplets that are falling from the sky actually cause a very small but persistent impact at the thinnest top layer and cause a little siltation to fill in all those pore spaces so you have a crust. That crust doesn't allow for good gas and water exchange, and so you have soil issues. Mulch will help reduce that. So you have mulch and you have no-till. This is the simple part of this talk today. Don't turn your soil over. That's not what it needs. I know you want to open it up because there's this feeling it's too tight, it's too compacted. You know, Zach said it's too compacted. I gotta uncompact it. Well, nature doesn't uncompact with a shovel or a plow. Nature uncompacts. I'm making this word up, uncompact. We're having fun here. Nature uncompacts soil in a very simple, well, not simple, but somewhat. It's chemical. I know the word chemical is scary, but think about it at its fundamental level. It is the chemistry of root exudates and photosynthetic byproduct and byproducts of compost and the things that ooze out of bugs and fungi that and then minerals that play a part in how the soil is stuck together and becomes unstuck, because it's a lot like magnetism down there, folks. We have a lot of positive and negative particles that are sticking together, and they can let go and they can stick to something else, and that's chemical. You'll hear people say you can open up your soil with gypsum because, you know, the reactions going on in that calcium are making stuff come unstuck. So it's chemical reactions happening. All right, so I don't want to go on and on, but I did want to just kind of make a bit of a lecture here on step A and B towards getting a healthier plant in the cultivated landscape. The man-made landscape would be a mulch layer of any sort, but year-round, and don't turn that soil over. Let nature do its thing. We'll have another talk on irrigation principles and fertilizer. I think I started out wanting to talk about fertilizer, but I ended up talking about mulch and compaction. Let's talk about fertilizer and why it's an illusion next episode. All right, everybody have a great day. Plant Dude signing off.